This is a story about an incident that I caused when I was a reckless teenager, and because of it, I still carry a terrible trauma with me. If I hadn't acted so foolishly back then, my life would have gone smoothly. I cannot help but recall that nightmare-like incident, even if I don't want to keep reliving it. It must have been about 15 years ago. I was around 17. At that time, my routine after school was to go to the arcade with my friends. On the day of the incident, I was happily playing a game called Tekken with my friends at the arcade, but there was also a man in his 30s playing the same game. I ended up competing with him at Tekken. At that time, I was known to be very good at Tekken. There was no one in the neighborhood who could beat me. As expected, the man was completely defeated by me, and I could see him gritting his teeth in anger. He kept challenging me, and I kept winning. Then, he suddenly started to bang his fists on the monitor and roared. Then he yelled at me.
Do you want to fight me in real life instead of playing a game?
But I burst out laughing, because he was clearly a big man in his 30s, but his voice sounded like a child's. Then he suddenly grabbed me by the collar, as if he was more angry at my laughter. I was flustered by his aggression, and my friends who were watching started trying to stop him. Then, the man's expression suddenly became very stern, and the sound of his voice did a 180. He said in a very deep, rumbling, low voice,
"Are you the one who made Max mad?"
I swallowed hard, confused by the sudden change in his demeanor. At that moment, I thought this man was mentally ill, and I had a gut feeling that something was wrong. I was scared because he was a big man. When I apologized, the man's eyes and expression suddenly changed to gentleness again. He let go of my collar and said,
I'm sorry, my friends are too hot-tempered. I'll stop them, so please go.
Then he continued to mutter to himself, his voice changing every few seconds.
"I'm angry!"
Don't be angry. I'm going to kill that guy.
No, please don't do that.
Let's kill him. No, just hit him a few times.
"Should I hit him?"
No, you stay still.
I still can't forget the chill running down my spine as I watched the scene in front of me. I was about to leave the arcade when the man suddenly shouted,
"Where are you going, you punk? Max keeps crying because of you. Let's play another round of Tekken."
When I turned around in surprise, the man was running towards me with tears in his eyes. I screamed, and the man threw himself at me and swung his fist. I barely managed to avoid it, but he didn't stop. Some of my friends ran over and started fighting with the guy, and I heard someone calling the police. I should have run away then, but I was too young and made a bad call. I was angry and punched him back. He fell back after being hit by my punch, and he seemed to be unconscious for a moment. After a moment, he opened his eyes and started shouting in an unrecognizable language. Then he suddenly jumped at my friend Frank and pushed him. Frank fell back, hitting his head on the game's console and falling to the floor. I could see blood flowing from his head. I was terrified and froze in place. Then the guy suddenly shouted in a woman's voice,
Everyone, please stop. Do you want to go to jail again?
Then he pointed at me again and said in a deep, manly voice,
"We have to kill him. He made Max mad. Max is still crying."
Then he shouted something in Chinese and looked around wildly. It seemed like he was looking for something. I was scared and stuck next to my friends. Then he shouted again in a deep, manly voice.
"Xia Hao is looking for a knife right now. He said he'll cut you up. This guy used to run a butcher shop. Do you know what I mean? There are 7 of us. Do you think you can beat us?"
After a while, the police arrived, and the man's eyes and facial expression suddenly became softer, and he spoke to the police in a very kind voice. The police looked at the man and said he seemed like a good person, and asked us if he really had been violent, and they had a hard time believing it. However, due to the testimonies of many witnesses, the guy was eventually arrested. I also went to the police station for questioning, and there the guy continued behaving like a nice person in front of the police. I couldn't tell if it was just an act or if the man was being genuine. Anyway, after that day, I never went to the arcade again and stopped playing games completely. And I suffered terrible trauma from the stress of the situation and the guilt of what happened to my friend. What on earth was that man's true identity? Were all of them true?